Say that again.
I can't believe everything I hear. You know what I'm saying? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ما بعد. We stopped last week in the book of fasting, Kitab al-Siyam, on the chapter, the fasl of intercourse during the daytime. For the one who has intercourse during the daytime of Ramadan and the penalty for that, so forth and so on. And the last thing we said was وَلَا كَفَارَ بِغَيْرِ جِمَاعٍ فِي نَهَارِ رَمَضَانِ. The only thing that requires that a penalty is paid along with making up the day during Ramadan is intercourse during the daytime of Ramadan. Meaning the person has to make the day up and they have to pay a penalty along with making up the day. So there's nothing else that a person breaks a person's fast that they have to also pay the penalty with outside of intercourse during the daytime. طيب. And next he goes on, rahimahullah, to what is that penalty. Number one, having relations with a person's spouse on the day of Ramadan for a man or a woman, meaning that a person intentionally breaks their fast, right? Generally, not fasting Ramadan. Not fasting during the daytime of Ramadan without a valid excuse is from the major sins. As Imam Al-Dhahabi, rahimahullah, listed in the book Al-Kabair, the major sins, that one of them is fasting, breaking the fast on Ramadan without a valid excuse. So the one who breaks the fast during the day of Ramadan with intercourse without a valid excuse, it falls under the same ruling from the major sins. And there is no penalty, again, there is no penalty along with the making up of the day except for intercourse during the daytime of Ramadan. طيب. The penalty now, as he says, rahimahullah, وَهِيَ إِتْقُ رَقَبَةٍ فَإِنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ فَالصِّيَامُ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعِينَ فَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَإِطْعَامُ 60 مِسْكِينًا فَإِنْ عَجَزْ سَقَطَتْ. طيب, the first thing, if a person, a man or a woman, has intercourse on the day of Ramadan, along with that breaking the fast, along with them still refraining from doing anything, eating or drinking throughout the rest of that day, and along with having to make up the day, that day of fasting, they also have to pay the kafara, the penalty. That penalty is one of three things. In order, one of three things. The first one, we're not able to, as we don't have or we don't own any slaves. But the first one would be itqu raqaba, that a person would free a slave. A person would free a slave. And they describe that slave as a believing slave and not, for example, and this is not the case, but let's just say, for example, if you had to give away something that you're selling, right? If I sell cars, for example, and I got a penalty, so I got to give away a car, right? Do I give away my top prize or do I give away my most damaged car that I probably wouldn't be able to sell anyway? Huh? I don't have to give away my top prize, but if I had slaves to give away, I can't give away my most damaged property. Meaning a slave that can barely do anything for the person that you're giving it to anyway. Giving him her to. Okay? It would have to be a slave, even though we don't have this situation. So a person can't say, and it's not something that's light, I'm gonna just break Ramadan and pay the kafara. No, it's a major sin to break the fast with anything without a valid excuse. So they describe it as being a believing slave who is free from any defects that will prevent them from working. The reality, our reality, starts with the second option, which is, as he says, فَإِن لَمْ يَجِدْ فَصِيَامُ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ. This is not optional. This is obligatory for the one who breaks the fast with intercourse, that they have to make that day up and they have to pay the kafara. So after Ramadan is over, that means they owe a day. And on top of that, they have to fast 60 days. I'm sorry, shahrain. 2 months. 2 months is how long?
60 days.
Huh?
Could be 60 days.
Could be 60, it could be
58.
58. They're on the Islamic calendar. Whenever we hear shahr, the month on the Islamic calendar, which could be 29 or 30.
There's a question about that.
Hold
Um, those days have to be directly after Ramadan ends, or do we have the option of choosing when we can fast those consecutive 2 months?
We're going to come to that, inshallah. But the 2 months have to be consecutive. Shahrain, 2 consistent months of fasting. So, mathalan, for example, according to the Islamic calendar, that month might be 29 days. Right? But the next month after that might be 30 days. Or both months could be 29 days. Or both months could be 30 days. Whatever it is, it will have to be 2 months straight. No breaks in between. Obligatory, not optional. If a person is not able to fast for the 2 months straight, meaning what? What will prevent a person from fasting for 2 months straight? Sickness, pregnancy, or not just the fact that fasting 2 months straight is difficult. I can't do that, I'm gonna just do the other one. No. Something has to be preventing the person from fasting. They're sick, so they're not allowed to fast. The sickness doesn't allow them to fast that long. They might can do a month like they did Ramadan, but 2 months straight, they're not gonna be able to do it, health-wise, or whatever another case may be. Not the fact because a person just doesn't want to fast 2 months straight because that's a long time and I just fasted Ramadan, so now it's like I'm going to fast 3 months. That's not a valid excuse. Something has to be preventing them from being able to fast. If that is the case, then their third option, فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَطَعَامُ سِتِّينَ مِسْكِينًا, then they have to feed 60 poor people. They have to feed 60 poor people for the one who is not able to fast due to a valid reason. Now what if the person can't fast because they have a valid reason? And on top of that, they can't afford to feed 60 people. What do they do after that? Huh? After that? Huh? There's nothing after that.
Somebody can pay on their behalf.
Somebody can pay on their behalf. Leave it on me first. If I'm not able to do it without bringing a third party in, then what? As he says, if an ajaz saqata, then the penalty drops off. The penalty drops off if a person doesn't have the ability to do that due to the hadith that they covered on a Monday's class, the Arabi, the man who came and he told the Prophet ﷺ, I destroyed myself, that hadith. Then he went through, do this, and then the man told him that I can't. There's nobody who needs it more than me. So he told the man to feed your family. When he told him to feed his family, the reason they say, number one, he didn't command the man to pay another kafara. He said, well, since you can't do those, then do this. He didn't tell him to do that. And secondly, he didn't inform the man that even though you can't pay it now, it's still on your neck. So they say that if that's the case, then the penalty drops off. The fact that the penalty drops off doesn't mean that they still don't have to make up the day. They still have to make up the day. But the penalty itself is a different issue. Clear? And I actually saw somebody who had to fast for 2 months straight. But it wasn't for breaking the fast in Ramadan. It was due to an accidental death that they hit somebody. A brother was crossing the street, so he was cleaning the street. He was a street cleaner, so he hit him. He crashed, and he hit him and killed him. So he had to fast the penalty. They went to court. It was ruled accidental death. He didn't do it intentionally, but the brother died, rahimahullah. So they ruled that the penalty was what? He had to fast shahrain mutatabi'ain, 2 months straight as a kafara. Tayyib. How does the judge know if he fasted or not or completed his fast? He doesn't know. The judge, I'm talking about the court, literally go to court, they give a ruling, boom, this is what you got to do. So how does the judge know if he completed his fast or not? He doesn't know. So it's between him and Allah.
Oh, he could know though. He could lock him up, make sure the food don't go there.
But they're not going to lock him up because of an accident. So they're not going to hold him because it's an accident, right? So the ruling comes down, that's between him and Allah. And it's the same thing. If a person breaks the fast and they had intercourse with their Ramadan, and that's the penalty, that's on their neck, Yom Al-Qiyamah, until it's done. If they're not able to do that, they have to feed. It's not optional. It's not like I might feed them, I might not. It's a penalty. They have to feed them, wujuban. And if they don't, then the sin is on them. And of course, the only people that would know if a person's fasting, the only way I knew he was fasting because I asked him. Because he looked different. He came tired every day. He just wasn't himself. So I asked him, what's wrong? Everything all right? He said, no, I'm fasting my 2 months. And then he told me everything that happened. But the point being is that it wasn't that someone was clocking him. And he knew that. Right? It's between him and Allah, which is the same issue. Tayyib. It says, Faslun, and now it's going to mention the things that are disliked to do while fasting. And some of these things people might think actually break the fast, but they're disliked. And some of them don't necessarily break the fast, but they decrease the reward. So there's not as much reward in that day of fasting for the person if they fall into one of these things. He said the first thing, كُرِهَ لِلصَّائِمِ جَمْعُ رِيقِهِ فَيَبْدَعَهُ. Number one is disliked for a person to gather all of the saliva in their mouth and then swallow it. Right? To do what? Intentionally. Now, a person may say, why would you do that? But we're all adults. Kids, the younger you are, you think a person might think, this works. They might think it works. It's gonna do something for them. Right? But if they did that, the saliva is from the mouth itself. So if it's from the mouth itself, it doesn't break the fast, but it's still disliked to do it. Tayyib, he says, secondly, ذوق الطعام. ذوق طعام. To taste the food. Tasting food. Now, is it permissible to taste food? Because he says here with walau lihaja. Is it permissible to taste food while fasting for the cook? You're the chef. There's a couple chefs in here.
If need be, yeah.
If need be. Tayyib. Should they taste the food or shouldn't they taste the food? He says, kuri. He said, it's disliked to taste it. Right? Not haram, disliked. Tayyib. Some say, as long as it's a haja. And he mentions specifically that it says in the more detailed books, it says, lihaja wa maslaha. Right? It might be a need, it might be a benefit. They said, for example, the benefit, it says, not that men don't cook, but the example they use, it says because her husband, brothers, and this for sisters too, because it applies to the woman, if the man is cooking. But it says her husband might have bad adab. She can taste the food because her husband might have bad adab. He might have bad character. His character's not really strong like that. Does that make sense? It's a yes or no question.
Yes. Yes.
He says yes, he says no. Why does it make sense?
Because if he has bad character and doesn't taste good, he's just gonna come out and say it don't taste good or it's nasty.
Mumtaz, excellent, exactly. It's not from adab. It's not from the Islamic character to criticize the food. So she cooks the food, she's fasting, number one. She doesn't taste it, or he doesn't taste it, right? Restraining, because they're fasting. So when they give it to the wife, or the wife gives it to the husband, the one with bad edit is going to complain about the food. So he says the maslahah, the benefit in tasting the food for the cook, is just in case the person that they're serving has bad edit. They don't really know the Islamic etiquette when it comes to table manners. So now when the food comes and there's not enough salt, you know, you put no salt on it, it's bland, or whatever the word they use to criticize the food, which is considered bad edit. And the ulama differ. Some say even if it's, of course, if there's a need to taste it, then there is no dislike in that. But if there's no need to taste it, some say that it's dislike.
But taste our food. Taste the food that we're going to prepare, you know, for community.
Right.
Just taste it enough, put it on our palate, spit it out.
There you are.
Rinse your mouth out.
Jade. Important for the cooks that tasting the food is not swallowing. Swallowing is going to break the fast, and that's why some of them say it's disliked to even taste it. Why? Because you put yourself in a position to swallow, right? So they say stay away from it altogether, but other than that, of course, they say if it's a need to do it, then it's permissible to do it, and some say it's disliked to do it, and as he says here, walau li haja. Some say it's disliked, even if it's a need, it's disliked because you put yourself in that type of position. Those are the first two, gathering the saliva and swallowing it, and the second one, tasting the food. طيب. He says, وَعِلْكٌ قَوِيٌّ. And this we don't really have. It's like a type of gum that is used, but it doesn't really have taste to it. It doesn't soften, it's like hard, right? There's no real taste to it. It's not the type of gum that we used to, right? They say that this is also disliked. طيب. They say that this type of gum, the more you chew it, the harder it gets. They say why? Because what it does is it creates more saliva in the mouth. You see how in detail it is? Anything that's going to get close to pushing down and going, stay away from it, basically. But that's how detailed it gets. It's going to create more saliva. It's going to cause a person to be, you know, for the hunger to increase and things like that. They say, وَإِنْ فَإِنْ وَجَدْ طَعْمَهُمَا بِحَلْقِهِ أَفْطَرًا. If a person finds the taste of their food and it goes down to their throat, from what? Either from the gum or from tasting the food, they say aftara, that breaks the fast. That breaks the fast. Now that's one type of gum. That gum is the gum that hardens, but it's another type of gum, as they describe it, as the gum that dissolves. It dissolves in the mouth and the taste goes down. They say this type of gum, haram, is haram, impermissible to chew. For us, generally, we must stay away from gum. At the end of the day, the things that are disliked and the things that are haram, either way, fasting Ramadan is a pillar. It's a pillar that is not optional to be fulfilled. It's a pillar that has to be fulfilled, wujub, and obligatory. So it's not something that we want to gamble with. I heard a brother say there's certain types of gum you can chew. Well, why you fasting? Nah. The type of gum that they're talking about, we don't even have anyway. Most of the gum that we have is closer to the second side, that dissolves in the mouth and the taste goes down without you even trying. طيب. He says, وَبَلْعُ نَخَامَةً. He says, وَبَلْعُ نَخَامَةً. He says also, that's what he did, where he started with things that were disliked and then he mentioned two things that were haram. He says, swallowing, بَلْعُ نَخَامَةً, swallowing mucus. Swallowing mucus. Remember, they said anything that enters the jawf, the inside, through the throat, through the dimag, right? Anything that enters is going to break the fast. And the question is, why would swallowing mucus break your fast?
It's like, it actually has a taste and it's thick. It's like,
Isn't it pure?
Mucus is not impure. Where is mucus anyway? In your nose. The things that don't break the fast, actually, are those things, the saliva in the mouth. So when you pull something from somewhere else, the ulcer is not here. That's how detailed it is. The mucus either comes from here, the chest, which is not originally in the mouth. So you pull some mucus from your chest from somewhere else to your mouth. And then you swallow it. The asl is that it wasn't there. You pull it from, you got a head cold, right? The asl is it came from another place. It didn't come from here. Swallowing saliva that's in the mouth doesn't break the fast. Why? Because it's the asl. It's there already. You can't really get away from that. But for you to pull it from somewhere else, you can get away from that. What do? You spit it out. So they say, Bel'u nukhama. If a person, it says even if it's from the chest, or if it's a head cold, they say that will break the fast. That will break the fast. And wasalat ila famihi. لأنها من غير الفم. Because the origin is that the mucus is not just sitting in the mouth. It comes from somewhere else.
That has to be intentional though, right?
Intentionally. Intentionally. As he said before, those things we do ذاكرا لصومي. If you do it intentionally, عامدا. طيب. He says وتقرأ قبلة والدواعي وطء لمن تحرك شهوته. He says also disliked, and there's some detail, kissing. A man kissing his wife or the wife kissing her husband. Tayyib, disliked. For who? He says, liman tuharrik shahwata. For the person knowing you know, kissing your wife at this point right now is going to cause excitement. Right? It's going to cause excitement. For the person who they know, when they kiss their wife or the wife kisses their husband, it moves the desire. They said it's disliked. And they go even further, they say it's haram to kiss the spouse if a person thinks that it's going to cause them to ejaculate, man or woman. If you think it's going to take you that far, haram. If you think it's just going to move the desire to some extent, they say it's disliked. Why? You put yourself in a situation that could possibly lead to something else which could break the fast. Tayyib, that's just a kiss. Of course, that's not for, as they describe it, imagine, that's for the permissible, the one that is permissible for you to kiss. So the one who is not even permissible, you're not married to her, or he's not married to you, then it's haram from the door. But the one who is permissible, your wife, is permissible to kiss your wife. If it's going to cause something else, it says just like the kisser in that case. If it's going to cause even more than that, if you think it's going to cause you to ejaculate or release, then man or woman, then they said in that case it is haram. That's the kiss. Or, as he says, وَالدَّوَاعِي وَطْءٍ. Also, not just the kiss, anything that is going to lead to intercourse. Playing around with your wife, the wife playing with her husband, anything that may lead to intercourse. If you know that is going to cause ejaculation, haram. If you know, if you think it possibly could go that far, haram to even start it. If you know it's going to cause you to be excited or something like that, disliked. Everybody with me? Disliked to just move the desire, because you put yourself in a situation where it could go further than that into something that breaks the fast. If from the beginning, if you already know, if I do this, more than likely, it's probably going to cause ejaculation, they say that is in itself is haram.
Kissing your spouse intentionally, would it be a way to break that fast? Tongue kissing and saliva exchange, and then you swallow.
Swallow saliva? Mumkin. Maybe. Because you got to understand the scholars that they differ. Number one, we know they already differ on what breaks the fast, like what can go in and what can't go in the body. So some of them, anything that goes in there, and they actually mention that, not here, but that is actually mentioned in the more detailed books. That's somebody else's saliva, but what about your own saliva? Meaning, You gotta understand, these are not restricted. The Masal, the issues that the ulama deal with are not restricted at what you would do, or what I would do, or who would do that. Else they wouldn't be mentioning it. If somebody does this, what's the hukum? So they even mentioned, I don't know how many of y'all did this, back in the day we used to spit and then do what? Yeah. Right? Right? They talk about that. You fasting, it goes out of the mouth. Right? You pull it back in and swallow. We ain't gonna get into all that. But point being is it goes, they discuss that now. It could be an issue. Because what? It's something that's not from your mouth that goes in. On top of that, the issue of the qubla, the kiss itself, that's a heavy type kiss. That's not like a peck on the forehead or a peck on the cheek. That's a kiss, right? So it's something to stay away from just to be on the safe side. Just to be on the safe side. And a person might say, who would do that? No, you don't know. It's new Muslims. They don't really know the extent of what you can do and what you can't do when you're fasting, right? So they might think, as long as we don't have, and of course we good. That nothing's wrong, but it's something to stay away from in general. طيب. It says after that, وَيَجِبُ اجْتِنَابُ كَذِبْ وَغِيبَ وَشَتْمٍ. He says it's obligatory to stay away from, and he mentions three things during the fast. As he says, وَيَجِبُ مُطْلَقًا. Not just during Ramadan. In general, these three things he mentioned is obligatory for the Muslim to stay away from these three things. He says, firstly, kadhib, lying. And he says, ghiba, backbiting. And in the sharh, the explanation, they also mention namima, tail carrying, or shatm, and cursing people. Cursing people. Not cursing like the lion. Using foul language, talking bad to people, calling them names. For some reason, some Muslims think it's okay to curse, as if that's from the etiquette of a Muslim, man or woman. For some reason, Allah, I don't know where or why. But as he says here, the obligation is to stay away from these things at all times, not just in Ramadan. He says, because the Messenger ﷺ said, "Man lam yada' قول الزور والعمل به فليس لله حاجة في أن يدع الطعام والشراب." The hadith is recorded by Imam Ahmad, Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah, that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever doesn't leave off قول الزور and acting on that قول الزور, then Allah is in no need of their fasting. It doesn't mean, Allah is in no need of them not eating and not drinking. Doesn't mean they don't have to fast, doesn't mean the fast isn't obligatory. Whoever doesn't leave off evil speech, which can include a lot of things. Namima, backbiting, slandering people, tail carrying, lying, cursing people, talking disrespectful to people. Whoever doesn't leave that off, as he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah is not in need of their leaving their food and their drink. Which doesn't mean that if you curse at somebody, because people think if you curse, then the fast is broken. I broke my fast, so I'm gonna just eat. Right? Or the curse words specifically don't break the fast, but it minimizes and reduces and takes away from the reward that a person is going to get for that fast. It takes away from the reward of the fast that day. It doesn't mean that a person should just break the fast and start eating for the rest of the day, because it doesn't necessarily break the fast. He says, also included in that is backbiting. It says here, because he also says وَنَحْوُ and other things like that, كَفُحْشٍ, bad, foul language, إِجْمَاعًا فِي الْجُمْلَةِ, and this is something that has almost reached the level of what consensus of the scholars, the obligation to stay away from these things. It says, وَالْمَرَادْ اجْتِنَابُ الْكَذِبِ إِذَا كَانَ مُحَرَّمًا. The intent is to stay away from lying if it is a lie that is an impermissible lie. Lies that are impermissible, haram, that we have to stay away from. لِأَنَّ مِنَ الْكَذِبِ مَا هُوَ وَاجِبٌ, because as he says, there's sometimes that lying is obligatory. Sometimes it's obligatory to lie, like when?
Like if you're trying to bring two
Save yourself.
together.
There you are, to save yourself. Or as he says, takhlis Muslim in qatl, to save somebody from being killed by some danger, to save somebody from danger. Right? Did you see him run by here? I don't want to lie, yeah, he ran by there. Somebody chasing him down. Did you go down here? And he asked you a question. It's permissible to lie to save a person from, as he said, to save a Muslim from being killed. It says, وَمَا هُوَ مُبَاحٌ كَإِصْلَاحٍ بَيْنَ الزَّوْجَيْنِ. Or also the permissible lie to make reconciliation between the two spouses. Somebody asks you to discuss or have a sit down with them, and the wife and the husband, they having some problems. Can you sit down with us and discuss it? Later. And you might tell a lie in that sitting in order to bring them two together. Not for one to get the upper hand on the other one. Right? Not so that she can get over on him or that he can get over on her, but the lie would be to bring them closer, to eradicate the situation and bring them closer. Tayyib. Now he moves on to the sunnah, the things that are considered to be sunnah while fasting. وَسُنَّ لِمَنْ شُتِمْ قَوْلْ إِنِّي صَائِمٌ. The first thing is that when we're fasting and they say to the person, we should say this jahla, so that people can hear us loud. Somebody talking crazy, as we say, right? He talking crazy, we say, I'm fasting. You let them know, I'm fasting, إِنِّي صَائِمٌ. Right? It says number 2. طيب. And that's due to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, hadith, clear hadith. فإن شاتمه أحد أو قاتله فليقل إني صائم. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, so if somebody tries to talk foul to him or try to, engage with him and argue that a person is to say, I'm fasting. Let them know that I'm fasting. Number 2, sunnah. Another word for sunnah is what? Huh?
Like something awful.
In English. Recommended. J. Recommended. Not sunnah mu'akkada. Sunnah mu'akkada is highly recommended. Recommended. So the recommendation is if somebody comes like this talking crazy, that we say, I'm fasting. That doesn't mean recommended or sunnah is a daraja, is a level under wajib. Meaning, if a person doesn't say, I'm fasting, it's not like it's a sin on them. But the best thing is to say, I'm fasting, as the Prophet ﷺ said. But the next thing that is sunnah recommended is ta'khiru suhoor, is to delay the eating of the suhoor. To delay the eating of the suhoor as late as possible. In lam yakhsha tulur fajrin thani. As long as a person doesn't delay until they fear that they're going to miss the adhan. Because we can't eat after the adhan. Once the time, whether we're using our phones, you got a prayer sheet, it says fajr, adhan for fajr, it says 5:15. That means we got to stop eating at 5:15. So as long as a person doesn't fear that if they delay the suhoor too long, that they're going to run over in fajr, that they should delay the suhoor and eat as close as possible to the adhan without putting ourselves in harm of eating after the adhan. Right? If that's the case, even when we're rushing, sometimes it's real, it get a little tight. You wake up late, I got 1 minute. Right? I got 1 minute. You wake up with 1 minute. You run, you gotta get up, gather yourself, run downstairs, open the refrigerator, find something to eat. You blew your minute. And don't look. Grab water, right? The safest thing to do is to what? Huh? Chalk it up, as we say. So don't do anything, right? At least look at the time. At least look at the time. But we can't play with the fasting, the time of fasting and say, and Allah knows. Oh man, I didn't know it was time. You knew it was time because you ran downstairs. You knew it was 1 minute left, right? You knew it was time because you ran downstairs to get to whatever you're trying to get to. So it's a pillar again, so it's not something we want to play with, and you know, as if the people around us that might be in the room are going to hold us accountable for eating after the adhan. That's with Allah. The fasting and stopping on time and all of that is with Allah Jalla wa Ala. Tayyib. They say that we should delay the suhoor. Why? Due to the hadith of Zayd ibn Thabit, when he said to Saharna ma'a Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, thumma qumna ila salat. They covered this hadith also on Umdah At-Taalib class, that we had suhoor with the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and then we stood to pray. And they said the distance, kam bainahuma. How much time was between the adhan and the iqama? Qadra 50 ayat. The time it would take for a person to read 50 ayat, right? Which shows that it was close to the adhan. So the recommendation is that we eat closer to the adhan as possible without eating after the adhan. Now, which means that a person could eat an hour before the adhan, and that's their suhoor, right? The suhoor doesn't have to be 2 minutes before the adhan. The meal before the adhan, the suhoor should be as close as possible. But if you ate 45 minutes, some people, they can't rush like that. They're not able to function rushing, eating like that. So they get up extra early, they have to prepare, sit, I don't want to rush. By the time they finish eating, it's a half hour left. There's 45 minutes left to the adhan. That's fine. The obligation is not that it has to be a minute or two before, but it's better, the later the better, without going overboard. Tayyib. The next thing recommended is ta'jilu fitrin, to rush to break the fast. When it's time to break fast, that we rush, that we don't drag it out. I'm gonna shoot up here, take a half hour after we done prayed, a half hour later, right? As the Prophet ﷺ said, "La yazalu nas bi khayrin ma ajjalu al-fitra." He said the people will continue to be upon goodness, khair, as long as they rush to break the fast. As long as they rush to break the fast. And as they say, and we spoke about this last week, إِذَا تَحَقَّقُ غُرُوبَ الشَّمْسِ. If we sure that it's time to break fast. If we sure that it's time to break fast. And that's especially for the brothers, and even if it's sisters that go to break fast at the masjid, that if you're in the masjid and all of the Muslims are there fasting together, and there's a mu'adhin who's going to call the adhan, and we all wait to break fast together, why would you break fast according to your maybe accurate, maybe not too accurate application on your phone, when there's a mu'adhin that everybody's dependent on to call the adhan to break the fast? Brothers do it all the time. They come and they stand in the back, they look at their watch, the mu'adhin is standing to call the adhan, and they'll stand in the back and they'll break the fast, say he's taking too long, based on their phone. And we know that all of the phones, majority, are different. Maybe a 2-minute difference, 1 minute difference, 3-minute difference. The safest thing to do is, especially if you're here with the mu'adhin, is to break with the mu'adhin. That's his responsibility to alert the Muslims that it's time, number one, the entrance of the salat, which is the breaking of the fast for Maghrib. So it says, ta'jil al-fitrin. Rush to break the fast when we know it's time, when we're sure that it's time to break the fast. Tayyib. He says, وَلَهُ فِطْرُ بِغَلَبَةِ الظَّنِّ. What if a person's not in the masjid, or they're not in a place where the adhan is going to be called? Can they break the fast when they think it's time to break? Right? Think. Huh? You can look at the schedule. Look at the schedule. Look at the sky.
What is it? Sun sits over and says it's called a zenith, something like that.
I'm a new Muslim. I don't know about all that. You gotta, all right. You gotta figure the person they don't know new. Most people don't know what to look for anyway in the sky. Majority of people don't know what they're looking for. So the point is, for example, maybe I don't have my phone on me, I don't have my watch, I'm at work. Yesterday, we broke, it's usually like 1 minute. Yesterday, we broke at 8:20. Generally, it goes up 1 minute, right? So a person's gonna assume, all right, well, the day is 8:19. Can they do that?
You're on the safe side, don't give 5 minutes.
Right. Safe. I'm not saying you, I'm saying the safe thing to do is if we broke at 8:20 yesterday, I'm at work, I don't have my watch on, I don't have my phone, I can't call anybody, I don't have a prayer schedule. The safest thing to do is to wait till 8:22 or 8:23. That's safe. Could a person just break at 8:20 again? Ala ghalabatul dhann?
No.
They could break on 8:20 again. They could break on 8:19, assuming, but that doesn't mean that all the things we discussed earlier about breaking too early don't apply. Would it be a sin if they were in that situation? And this happened, I'm going on. This is what I thought, so this is what I did. Like you did what you were supposed to do, but you came up short. So you gotta make that day up, right? The safest thing to do was if I broke at 8:20, we broke at 8:20 yesterday, and I'm in a situation where I don't have anything to tell me, I'm gonna just wait until 8:22, 8:23, just to be on the safe side, right? But they say if a person, ghalabatul dhann is that it's a strong, they feel real strong about that. For example, you know, most people use phones now, but you know, you look on the prayer sheet, you might have gazed at it yesterday. So you're like, man, all right, 8:20 today, tomorrow's 8:19, it's going back. But now you don't have it with you the following day. But you kind of remember looking at the schedule, I think it did say 8:19, you feel strong about it. They say a person can do that. طيب. What should a person break fast with? He says, وَقَوْلُهُ عَلَى الرُّطُبِ فَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ فَتَمْرٌ وَإِلَّا فَمَاءٌ. To break the fast with rutub, dates. Dates is general, a general word. Rutub are a specific kind of dates, Rutub, which are a little, I don't want to use the word fresh, but I use the word a little less developed than the tamar. Usually the dates that we get are called tamar, right? They're dry, dark, right? The rutub are a little fresh. They're a little fresher. They, you know, not as old as the tamar, because dates go through stages. When they come off the tree, they look one way. The longer they sit, the color changes, and along with the color changing, the name changes with it. For just to be simplified, that's not like a detail, but that's how it generally goes. Some dates come off green, some of them come off yellow, right? Real yellow. And then you'll see them as they're yellow. Sometimes you ever see the date, half of it is yellow and then a half of it is brown, right? They're good, mashallah, right? And then the longer they sit, the whole thing is brown. And then the longer they sit, they change to something else. So the sunnah is to break it as the Prophet ﷺ. If he had rutub, he would break it with those that are the freshest, I'll say, of the three, if that's a good word. Then the tamar, the ones that we usually break here with here. And if a person can't find dates, then sunnah is to break the fast with water. Recommended to break the fast with water. Does that mean if a person broke the fast with a French fry, right? They would, you know, sometimes, you know, or you know, it's Ramadan, so you really got a taste for something. I'm breaking with this today. It breaks the fast and it counts. But the recommendation is to do what the Prophet ﷺ did. You have rutub. You don't have rutub, you have tamar. If you have tamar, you use water. After the water, if you had to break with at least the water or a date, after that, then you eat whatever you want to eat. But the breaking, the initial break, we should try to be as close to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ as possible. Some people, they say, well, I can't eat dates because they make me, all right, that's a whole different story. If you can stomach it, and you're able to do it, you should try to break with what the Prophet ﷺ broke with.
Can you clarify for most, most people, like viewers, new Muslims, when they feel as though say break fast, that means eat an enormous meal.
Does that mean eat an enormous meal?
A lot of people that I've spoken to that has, they feel they're under the assumption that breaking your fast means eating an enormous meal. So, we know that breaking fast just means like
right, something light.
Yeah.
That's jaded. That's good. The breaking of the fast is exactly to break it, which breaks, as we see, it breaks with water. What if I don't have anything to break the fast with? The intention by itself break it. The intention, if I don't have anything to eat, I'm stuck at work, or I'm stuck by the flat tire on the side of the road and nothing in the car, and it's time to break fast, and I don't have anything. I can break the fast with the niyyah. My intention is to break the fast at this point, it's time to break. And of course, especially for the brothers and the sisters who come out to pray, if you plan on praying in this Ramadan, we should all be trying to pray Tarawih. Then that big meal, as we say, sat me down, right?
Yeah.
It sat me down. I couldn't even come back out to pray Isha. The obligation for the Muslim man to pray Isha. But we got to be careful because we come late. We miss Isha, I'm going to just jump in for Tarawih, which is permissible to pray Jama'ah. But whose reward do you think is bigger? The one who came to pray the Salat, the fifth prayer, Salat al-Isha, right? All of that is connected to the breaking of the fast. If you sit down and eat some spaghetti with the garlic bread and all that, if you do that, then you get another half a plate. How, that type of thing. It's going to slow you down for the rest of the night. It's going to affect the rest of your worship for that night. We only get 29 or 30 days. We don't really have that many days to, not to worship, but to, seek that reward of Ramadan. So we should try not to eat that much. If we need to, break the fast, especially if somebody invites us. You go, accept the invite, eat something that's going to hold you over. Inshallah, take a plate for later. But don't gamble and eat till you can't even breathe. Now you can't stand for Tarawih, even though Tarawih is not obligatory, right? We get this pretty much once a year. We should try to take advantage of it. The breaking of the fast should be with something light. And then we come back later after we pray, and if we need to eat more, to eat more. So to break the fast with dates, and if not with water. And also, it's recommended the sunnah, as he says, وَقَوْلُهُ indahu, and to make the dua, to make a dua when breaking the fast. And there's more than one dua. The one he mentions here, Allahumma laka sumt, oh Allah, is for you that I have fasted, wa ala rizqiq aftart, and I have broken my fast with whatever you provided me with, whether it's dates, water, whatever it is. Subhanaka wa bihamdik, all glory and praise is to you. Allahumma taqabbal minni, oh Allah, accept this fast from me. Innaka anta as-sami'ul alim. You are the all-hearing, the all-knowing. The all-hearing, the all-knowing. Allahu Akbar. You hear that dua, the all-hearing, that a person says at the end of their fast, that you are the all-hearing, the all-knowing. As Allah knows what we were saying throughout the day with our fast, if we were lying, if we were speaking foul to people. And he says, Al-Alim, you are the all-knowing. A person might have broke their fast, they don't want anybody to know, so they come and they act like, they're breaking fast with everybody else. But Allah knows. Allah knows. And there are other du'as. There are other du'as to say, but recommended is to say the du'a when breaking the fast. If we don't know a du'a for breaking the fast, then we have time. We should be learning one now. We shouldn't wait until Ramadan to try to learn a du'a to break the fast with. By the time we get the du'a now, 2 weeks now went by. So we missed 2 weeks of Ramadan. We could have been making that du'a. Well, right now we have 2 weeks until Ramadan. So if we learn it now, inshallah, by the beginning of Ramadan, inshallah, we'll be ready.
As far as your niyat, your intentions, two questions. Now, after we break our fast, when or is there a proper time to make your intentions to fast for the next day? And is there a dua for that as well?
I don't know of any dua for fasting for the following day. But the question is, I don't know of any dua that you make for fasting for the next day. But the question is, when can you make your intention to fast for the following day?
Before you go to the exam,
Huh?
What's
the question?
Yeah, when do you make your intentions to fast for the following day?
When do you or when can you?
When do you or when can you?
Alright, when can you?
You can do it after you share or just before
Anytime before
the time for
Let me ask another question. What's the earliest you can make your intention to fast the following day? Let's start there. After Maghrib, once we break the fast. Once we broke the fast, that starts the next day. That's the night. So you got any time after that fast, once we broke until the adhan of Fajr. It has to be, the intention has to be made before the adhan of Fajr. Meaning if you made it after you broke the fast and you made your intention for the following day, then you ate, you did all that stuff, you went to sleep, you woke up at Fajr, you missed Suhoor. You already made your intention the night before, because the night starts after Maghrib. Now what you do or choose to do, anything between that is up to you. A person might make the intention after Tarawih. A person might make the intention when they get up for Suhoor. A person might make the intention, I know I'm gonna forget, so every night when I leave the masjid after Tarawih, I'm gonna make my intention. A person might make it, but the limit is between after Maghrib, before the Adhan of Fajr. Which one is better? Allah Allah. But that's what you can do.
So when making intention, is you just thinking, saying?
It's definitely not saying it. The intention is always in the heart. The intention is in the heart. The fact that a person intends with the heart to fast Ramadan is enough. It's easy. Making an intention is easy. It ain't like you gotta write it down, say anything, somebody gotta hear you. Then the fact that you intend to fast the following day is enough for the intention to be accepted, inshallah. Tayyib. He moves on to the person who missed some days fasting for whatever reason. Usually the sisters miss some days, brothers miss some days, people sick, so they miss a couple days. They might have traveled and broke the fast, whatever the reason is. He says, وَمَنْ فَاتُهُ رَمَضَانَ قَضَى عَدَدَ أَيَّامِ. Whoever missed some days during Ramadan, they missed the day of fasting for whatever reason, he says that they make those days up. Those days had to be made up. Meaning, if I was sick for 3 days and I didn't fast, then Ramadan is over. They don't just fall off and go away. Those days are on my neck and I have to make them up. Obligatory. If a sister has her menses, she can't fast. If her menses is on for 5 days, she got 5 days she has to make up. Not optional to make them up. They're obligatory days that she didn't fast on Ramadan. If her menses was on for 6 days, then she has to make up 6 days. If her menses was on for 7 days, she has to make up 7 days. What if she doesn't remember how many days her menses were on? She's not sure if it was 6 or 7 this month. What should she do?
Just go with the longest.
What's the safe side?
Just go with the longest.
Is the safe side in this case the lower number or the higher number? In this case, the safe side is the higher number, right? If she says, I'm not sure if I missed 6 to 7 days this year, right? Safe. Keep yourself safe so that you don't owe anything, right? Now, sometimes they forget. Why? Because they wait like until the next Ramadan is coming for whatever reason, right? Which is nothing, no problem. As Aisha, radiallahu anha, she had the same issue. She said that she wasn't able to complete her days until the following year in Sha'ban, if I'm not mistaken, the hadith says. Because she was busy with the Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam. She says, كان علي الصوم من رمضان عائشة فما أستطيع أن أقضيه إلا في شعبان. She said, I had days to make up for Ramadan. I wasn't able to do them until the next year in Sha'ban. Sha'ban is the month before Ramadan, right? She said, she was busy with the Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam. So sometimes they get to Sha'ban of the next year and they forgot. Because not only were the menses on, they might have traveled. Or they had 6 days of menses and then they got sick for 3 or 4 days. So now it's like, was it 10 or 11 days that I missed? I know I missed at least 10, it might have been 11. The safe thing to do is to do 11 that you make up so that you don't owe anything. طيب, sunnah fawran mutatabi'an. How do they make them up? It's recommended. The best thing to do is to do it immediately after Ramadan. And if you owe 10 days, to do them all straight. This is the best thing to do. The sunnah recommended. Question is, why?
Because you're already in that fasting mode, so it's easy. Once you break down and start eating, it becomes harder. You kind of break that lazy mode.
Break that cycle.
طيب, that's a reason that we look at.
You might forget.
طيب. Why is it recommended to do the fasting immediately after Ramadan and in continuation? I mean, if I owe 7 days, after Ramadan, I do 7 days.
But you still in,
Easy.
You in the flow.
you're still in the flow.
That's what he said. Number one, when does after Ramadan, when is it permissible for me to fast? After Ramadan is finished, when can I fast?
6 days showing.
Huh?
For 6 days.
The first 6 days of Shawwal?
It's 6 days.
Huh?
in
The day after the Eid. Can't fast the day of the Eid, which is the day of the Eid is the first day of Shawwal. You can't fast the first day of Shawwal. The day of the Eid, you can't fast. Haram.
So all right, even when you fast after Ramadan, why you just can't do your 6 days, then do the days that you gotta make up?
Jade. Well, I can't, that's one thing at a time now. We get to that. Tayyib. So we're not fasting the day of the Eid. After the Eid, I owe 7 days. I should fast them right then, right after the Eid, in all 7, because I owe them. They say, why? Because what you're making up is an exact reflection of the fast in Ramadan, which is what? There are no days in between. Every day you fast. So they say you should try to make it mirror the month of Ramadan, because it is mirrored. It's obligatory fast from Ramadan, which is 7 days. And when we fast on Ramadan, we don't take any breaks. It's not like, all right, I'm gonna fast today, right? You go straight through. They say that's the reason you should fast Ramadan. As far as fasting the 6 days of Shawwal, before the days of Ramadan, that's an issue. The early man, different one. They say how? Generally, you can't put a recommended act, which is the 6 days of Shawwal. You can't put that before an obligatory act, which is the days of Ramadan, right? I owe obligatory days of Ramadan. I'm gonna do something voluntary before I finish my obligatory. Some say no, and they differ on that. طيب. He says, وَيَحْرُمْ تَأْخِيرُهُ إِلَى رَمَضَانَ آخَرْ بِلَا عُذْرٍ. It is haram and permissible to delay the days that you have to make up, right? All the way until the next Ramadan coming in. So I owe 7 days and I don't make them up. And Ramadan is, for example, tomorrow. Well, Ramadan is starting Friday. It's Thursday or Friday, Ramadan is starting. It's Wednesday and I owe 7 days. That means I delayed all the way until the next Ramadan without making up my days. They say what? Haram without a valid excuse. Without a valid excuse. A valid excuse could be what? A person could have been sick. A woman could have been pregnant. Right? A person could have been traveling where the travel didn't allow them. They weren't able to do it without a valid excuse. For a person generally living their life normal, living a normal life the rest of the year, they have days to wake up and they wait to the next Ramadan, haram. Say haram ta'khiruhu, without an excuse. Without an excuse. And the excuse is, as Aisha radiallahu anha said, she couldn't make hers up until Sha'ban because she was busy with the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. Now, what if a person does delay making up the days until the next Ramadan without a valid excuse? He says, فَإِنْ فَعَلْ أَطْعَمَ لِكُلِّ يَوْمٍ مِسْكِينًا مَعَ الْقَضَاءِ. They still have to make the days up. But with every day, he says they have to feed a poor person along with every day. And this is another issue. All of the ulama don't agree on the feeding portion of the poor person for the one who delayed with no excuse. Some say that they have to make the day, of course, but with that, the fact that you delayed to the next Ramadan without excuse, they say also feed a poor person for each day. طيب. And we get ready to stop, inshallah. That's the last two issues. Well, this is the last issue for the night. وَإِن مَاتَ عُتِعِمْ عَنْهُ وَمَنْ مَاتَ وَعَلَيْهِ نَذْرُ صَلَاةٍ أَوْ صَوْمٍ أَوْ حَجٍّ وَنَحْوُ فُعِلَ مِنْ تَرِكَتِهِ فَإِنْ لَمْ تَكُنْ سُنَّ لِوَلِيٍّ. طيب, if a person does that, he says, if a person dies, they did what? They delayed making up the days. They owe 7 days. طيب. They delayed making the days up. It's two people. One person, they had an excuse for delaying. Sister was pregnant, right? By the time she wanted to make her days up, she was pregnant, she wasn't able to finish fasting her days. She got an excuse. A brother's sick, traveling for work, he's not able to fast. The person who has an excuse in the next Ramadan, right? And they die, not before the next Ramadan, they die before they make those days up. The one with a valid excuse, there's nothing on him. As they say, فَلَا شَيْءَ عَلَيْهِ, as long as a person has a valid excuse. But the person who didn't have a valid excuse for delaying it, and then they die, right? They die without making up those 7 days, without a valid excuse. He says, أُطْعِمْ عَنْهُ لِكُلِّ يَوْمٍ مِسْكِينًا, that a person should feed a poor person for each day that they owe. طيب. He says in وَمَنْ مَاتَ وَعَلَيْهِ نَذْرٌ. Number one, if this is the case, somebody dies, they didn't make it up. They say the wali, somebody who should do it, a person who is going to inherit from the one who died, from the deceased. So let's say if a man or a son, somebody in the family, a family member dies. When they die, they inherit from the father, the son inherits from the father, right? So the son, he should do what? Take from the inheritance of the father, the money that the father left behind, not out of his own pocket. Whatever he left behind, take from his money and feed a person for each day that he didn't get to make up. Clear? Right?
You feeding a poor person, or you feeding them one meal, or you feeding them for the whole day?
What you mean for the whole day?
Like,
What, 3 meals a day?
yeah.
No, a meal. Yeah. As if you were feeding a fasting person. You feed a person for the day. Tayyip, we leave it there. Tayyip. So the person who died without excuse, they died before they got to make the day up. If they died, if they had an excuse for not making them up immediately, right, then there's nothing on them. If they just were delaying it without an excuse, the one who would inherit it, if it's his son, his daughter, somebody from his inheritance, they should take from the money he left and feed a person for each day. If he owes 7 days, then feed one person for each day. طيب. The last thing, وَمَنْ مَاتَ وَعَلَيْهِ نَذْرٌ الصَّلَاةِ أو صوم أو حج ونحوه. And it's the same thing that if a person died and they weren't able to pray a prayer that they made an oath to Allah that they were going to pray. Person makes an oath, they make an oath to Allah that they're going to do something. Or they make an oath to Allah that they're going to fast. Or they make an oath to Allah that they're going to make hajj. Or anything like that. They say what? Mathalan, a clear picture. If Allah blesses me with this job, they make an oath, and I'm going to fast 3 days a month for 3 months straight. When a person does that, they get the job. When a person does that, right, they get their job that they were asking for. When they do that, those days of fasting become obligatory. They're not optional. I was going to do it, but that was in the winter. The days were short. It's summer. I'm gonna chalk them. No, those are obligatory days. Or if a person says, if Allah bless me with a righteous wife, Allah bless me with a righteous, the sister says, Allah bless me with a righteous husband, I'm going to pray 10 rak'ah, 11 rak'ah, all for a month straight. Right? If that's the case, and they marry the person that they wanted to marry, it becomes obligatory. That's the point. When a person makes an oath like that, and they get what they asked for, whatever action that they said they were going to do, that action becomes obligatory on them. They have to do it. Now, what if they die? What if they die before they get to do that action? Then the same thing applies. Somebody from his inheritors or her inheritors should take from their money and feed a person for each day that they said they were going to do something. And we'll stop there as the next chapter goes into the voluntary fast. Any questions? Follow.
Woman's in a day during Ramadan, she still has to fast, correct?
If she's in iddah,
Yeah.
if a woman's in iddah, does she have to fast? If a man divorces his wife and she's in iddah, does she have to fast? Yes. That doesn't prevent her from fasting at all. She's in iddah. Iddah has nothing to do with her fasting now. hopefully, it's a month of mercy.
It's not the last one.
Hopefully it's a month of mercy and it's not the last one that they can, get back together during that month. But the fact that a man divorces his wife doesn't prevent her from fasting, right? The menses prevent her from fasting, or postpartum bleeding may prevent her from fasting, or possibly she's pregnant and she's breastfeeding, right? Dependent, that could prevent her from fasting, depending on, but being an iddah doesn't prevent a woman from fasting. That's not a valid excuse not to fast. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, just one thing to say. Most of you may know my brother-in-law, Taalib, his daughter, she was living in Morocco. So anyway, she was hit by a car and she died. She was 7 months pregnant, so the 7-month-old child is dead. Her 2-year-old is dead. The 4-year-old is in a coma, might not make it, and she has one that's 5 that may make it. So make dua for her.
Brother Taalib Deen
and his daughter's name is Jamila.
His daughter's name is Jamila. Make dua for them, and those are his grandkids.
Yes.
He comes here sometimes. I haven't seen him in a while, but Allah make it easy for all of them. I mean, show you we not promised. We might not even make it to Ramadan. One of the sisters had a question. Say it again. It should be. You should try. You should exhaust all options in finding a Muslim to feed. Exhaust all options. In a city like this, there should be no reason we can't find a Muslim to feed. And that's another thing. If we need it, we shouldn't be embarrassed to take it. People who are in need, people who need it, they're going to take it. They're going to let you know they need it. We all need it, but there's some people who are more in need than others. All right?
So if they're not in need, then we can still feed them though? Like say if it's a person breaking their fast, are we able to like feed them or?
The word used is miskina.
Okay, so would they fall under being miskin?
Right? The word used is miskina. And miskina has a specific definition. And most people, and Allah knows best, most people don't fall. I'm not going to say that. But most people don't fall. A lot of us don't fall under the term miskin. Some of us may. But, Methalan, if you know that the brother or the sister is doing well, like, it really, honestly, it doesn't benefit them. In reality, it benefits you just to, get rid of, or get it off your neck real quick. But in these type of situations, you should try to exhaust all options. Ask around, who needs it, really? Not just somebody who just want to eat because we all fat. We all hungry, we all fasting, right? But some people, they're not eating again until tomorrow. Even, no, not like that, but they don't know. We're all not eating again tomorrow. They might eat that food that you give them and that's it. They don't know where their next meal is coming from, right? You should try to find people and look high and low, as we said. Look for somebody who really needs it. People who don't know where their next meal is going to come from. People, they have to go to a masjid. They don't go to a masjid, they might not eat anything. Right? Start there. Don't just make it, I gotta do this, let me get this off real quick so I can clear myself. Part of the benefit is given to people who need it. That's why it says miskeen, and somebody who's really, really needed. Not the general need, y'all. We all need something. Like, not that need. People that are, as we say, they're worse off than us. And if you don't know anybody, ask around. The point is that, you know what that does for the Muslim? I don't know you from a can of paint. How did you even find me? You had to really been looking for me to find out. You had to really look and find out to know that I needed it. Because that plate that you give them, they might have to break it down with somebody in their house. That might go straight home. They got to break it down with 4 people, right? We should look high and low to try to find those people before I'm going to just give it to you. You Muslim. You need it? Yeah, I need it. We should put a little more effort. That's part of looking out for the Jama'ah of the Muslims. Those people who, even though in our case, it's not like in Mecca, you got people, they don't mind telling you they don't need it. When it comes to Zakat al-Fitr, they sit outside after Fajr on the street and they wait for people to bring them the food. No shame, no hiding. I'm sitting here because I need it, right? But we shy. We don't like to let people know you know, what we need and what we don't need. But it's always somebody who knows somebody's situation. If you don't know anybody specifically who needs it, make some phone calls, ask around. Try to get it to a person who is definitely in need, inshallah.
One more question.
Brother.
Kind of off of her question, brother right here. Now,
Hold up, I'm sorry. Sisters, any more questions?
The last thing was just, what was the name of the date you said we should break our fast with? I didn't catch the
The
name.
first date is rotab.
Can you spell that?
In English or Arabic? In Arabic, ra, ta, ba. Rotab. In English, that's like rotab. R-U-T-A-B. Rotab. And after that, tamar. Ta, mim, ra. Tamar. Which is T-A-M-A-R. Tamar. And after that, ma. Mim, alif, hamza. Water. If you can find rotab, alhamdulillah, those things are recommended that we should try to do. Most of us, usually in the masajid, usually it's tamar. So,
as far as feeding someone for making up days, do you do it? Say for example, you missed 12 days, or you have to feed 60 poor person for committing a sin or do you feed one person a day, or could you feed them all in one day?
ulama differ on the tariqah, on how you should do it. Some say you can, like 10 days go by, and then you can feed 10 people. So of course you can do one a day. If you're able to do one a day, then like that. And some say as the days go by, like 10 days go by, all right, now you gotta feed 10 people, you do it like that. So I don't know if there's anything saying that it has to be any one of those ways, but there are different ways that the ulama mentioned that it can be done. Of course, if you can do one day at a time, also if you can find different people, that's even better. To spread it out, then that's even better. We'll stop there, inshallah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.
So what that next will be summer? No doubt.
The heavy dips.